So why are Americans so obsessed with football? One may find it almost quite silly, but in fact, these sports touch upon a very deep human instinct. Perhaps it touches upon even the deepest human desire. And as you begin uncovering the truth behind why we become obsessed with sports teams, you begin to understand that it is no question why this is one of the biggest industries in the world. And I think in America, our obsession with football is a bit easier to understand because America as a whole has its own unique personality. I like to often say that one can look at the United States as the ego of the world. We feel like we're the center of everything, that we have to control and dominate. We take it as our role to police the world. And so you see, with the emergence of the ego within human consciousness, as human beings developed, this allowed us to go from being at one with the environment, where everything is just a constant flow of life. There is no separation. But as ego consciousness developed, this allowed us to have a sense of separate self, so that we are no longer one with the environment, but that we are individuals. And so with the ego, we develop an identity. And with this identity, we can have relationships to others in the world around us. Without this sense of separate self, there is no contrast between this body, this human, and the world around us. So there's no ability for self-reflection. But what you find is that as an individual with a unique personality and identity, we find that one of our greatest desires is to return to the state of unity with all things. In fact, being in a state of unity is the greatest experience that we can have. Spiritual gurus and seekers of the truth and the sages, their whole purpose is to return to unity, is to become one with God. The reason that humans enjoy sex so much, not just because it serves a very powerful human instinct, but psychologically, for a moment, two individuals become one. And we enjoy the sensation of dissolving into unity. The reason we enjoy being around friends so much is that we can feel as if we are part of one group. Why we love to be with family, it's the same phenomenon. We all want to be at one with something. Because when human beings developed ego consciousness, then an incredible amount of suffering entered into our lives. This was the whole story behind Adam and Eve in Genesis. That once we developed ego consciousness, we developed a sense of self, became separate from everything around us. We became aware of our own mortality, our own nakedness. We began developing conceptions of the future and of the past. And what you will find is that the people who suffer the most are always the people who are stuck in the past, who are worrying about the future, who are so caught up in themselves. Whereas the moment you remain in the present moment, you focus your orientation upon serving others, take upon the role of selflessness rather than selfishness, and you experience a lot more happiness, a lot more peace, and especially a lot more love. when you practice deep meditation and you focus your attention inward, you're almost always in a state of peace, because you become one with your true state of being, that is consciousness, rather than being so obsessed with the ego identity, this character that we're playing, the personality we have become attached to and identified with. Because when you perceive yourself as separate from the world around you, you get caught in this underlying mode of survival at all times. And your happiness is based on how well you are surviving. So you have the people at the bottom who are just always trying to scrape and get by. And they're like, little rats, always afraid of everything around them, always hiding in fear, in scarcity. And then you have the people at the top, who many of them get their sense of self-worth. They enjoy the fact that they are rich only because there are poor people. And this gives people a sense of power over one another, that I am better than you. These are two manifestations of ego consciousness. But both experience high degrees of suffering. So when it comes to our obsession with football and with the world's obsession with sports in general, it is no trivial matter. These things tap into the deepest human desires to be at one with something. That is why you see people getting in fights over their favorite sports teams. That's why when people talk about their favorite sports teams, they say we, because we feel like we're a part of something, part of a group. And so we become attached to identification with a sports team. And so when somebody talks bad about our sports team, they aren't talking bad about something else. They're not talking bad about something that is other than us. They are talking bad about us, because we have become one with the sports team, at least from our ego consciousness perspective. And so saying your sports team is a bad sports team, your football team is bad, is no different than saying you're a bad person. That is why people get angry. That is why people get offended. No different than people's religious belief. When somebody talks bad about one's religion, they get personally offended because they have attached their identity to the religious beliefs. And you see the same kind of extreme violence that happens with sports also in religion. Not in the sports themselves, but the fans that react. You have people creating riots. It's not uncommon for people to be killed at some of these events. All because of people kicking a ball through a goal, two teams fighting against each other, and whoever has the most points at the end wins. There is so much violence among the fans of sports teams, just as there is so much violence upon the followers of different religions. It is because people are caught in ego warfare, group identity, tribal animalistic behavior. It is no different than two tribes fighting each other. When we were in tribes, we had to protect and defend our own, because there was always a threat of another tribe coming along and stealing our resources, stealing our women. And so you see this very deep instinctual root, this human behavior emerging in modern times with religion, with football, with soccer. People will go to the ends of the earth to defend their identity. People kill each other to preserve this sense of self. Pretty much all of rap music is cultured around this ego identity. Everybody who's not with us is our enemy and will kill you. Pure tribal animalistic behavior. And it's not that ego consciousness is necessarily wrong. It is very necessary for us to have relationships to other people, for us to have relationships to the world. But if we are not aware of it, then this is how human beings can go extinct. No problem. Very easily. Because if it comes down between my family and somebody else's, people are willing to do anything to protect their tribe, to protect themselves. Because this is a necessary survival instinct that we all have. But if we want to live more truthfully, if we want to, in a sense, rise to higher states of consciousness, we should focus on what actually is our underlying desire, and that is to return to unity, to be at one with something. Because this is heaven, it is bliss. That is what people are looking for, a sense of togetherness. Because this is perhaps one of the most fundamental truths about why we are here. Why is there something rather than nothing? Why are we alive? What is our purpose here on this planet? So you see, without contrast, there is no meaning. There is no ability to reflect, to understand something else. Because when you are at one with something, you cannot experience what you are one with. As it's been said, a scale can weigh many things, but a scale cannot weigh itself. A knife can cut many different things, but a knife cannot cut itself. And the eyes can see many things, but the eyes cannot see themselves. And even if you look in the mirror, you're only seeing a reflection. And so it's not just that we want to be at one with something, but we want to experience separation and a returning to unity. These are some of the deepest spiritual teachings that we can come to understand. So there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a part of something, to be at unity, to identify with a certain religion, with a certain sports team. The problem is in the attachment. It's being unable to let go of this ego identity. It is the attachment that causes people to engage in violent acts of destruction toward one another. Because we feel that we have to so strongly defend our sense of self. But this is a false reality that we live in. A false reality of perceiving separation. Because in truth, all is one from the very beginning. That there is no separation. And so long as we live in separation, we align ourselves with what is illusion, with what is false, with what is temporary. And so long as we align ourselves with that which is false or temporary or illusion, we align ourselves with death. And the more we align ourselves with death, the quicker it manifests into our life. People who are highly identified with their bodies will die much younger than people who identify with their minds. And people who identify with their consciousness, they have eternal life. Because the more one can align with the eternal, the more one can align with life. And the eternal is found in the present moment. And so what people are seeking in religion, in sex, in sports teams, are just lower representations of becoming one with yourself. What we are seeking is unity with the eternal, with God. And this is the experience of heaven or bliss that you have the power to experience at this very moment. It is only our attachment to our identity as a separate self that blocks our ability to see, because our true and natural state is peace and love and joy. And so the only reason we do not experience these things is because we perceive ourselves to be separate. And so people will spend their whole lives desperately trying to be a part of something, only to realize that it brings no real lasting satisfaction. Because you cannot find lasting satisfaction in a temporary world. And so if you want the heaven, it can only be found here and now, through pointing the mind inward, focusing on the inner spaciousness, the presence that is always there. And the more we resonate in this space, the more we align ourselves with the eternal. Because presence is the radiance of consciousness. We cannot experience consciousness because we are at one with consciousness, but we can experience the presence that consciousness radiates. And we can come to realize that we are the awareness that is the very nature of consciousness. And the more we focus our energy and attention on the fact that we are aware that all experience is arising and falling within our awareness, this is how you align yourself with the eternal. This is how you come to eternal life. This is what all people are searching for. This is why I like to look at a lot of people are playing life on demo mode, because they're so attached, in this instance, say, to an identification with a sports team, with a football team. And so they're trying to be a part of something. They want to be a part of a group. But it's not really satisfactory. But when one comes to the truth of themselves and begins turning inward to become at one with consciousness, with the true state of our very being, then we can have the lasting satisfaction, we can enjoy life, and then we can be a part of a group in the external world and enjoy it. We can enjoy life to the full breadth of the human experience. But most people are running around in the world just trying to survive, trying to find scraps of happiness, temporary moments of relief where they're not in so much pain, because they have not yet come to the truth about themselves and are seeking it in all the wrong places. True happiness cannot be found in the external world. True peace cannot be found in the external world. True love will not be found. It can only be found within you right now. And so one may rejoice in this understanding, because we realize that we do not have to look into the future for what we desire. We do not have to fix the past, and that we can never be separated from our true desire. But we just have a blindfold on that is preventing us from seeing clearly. So take the time to find yourself, your true self. Find the eternal within you. Align yourself with the eternal so you can play and have fun in the external world. So it's not such a burden, a life sentence in which we are a slave to, because this is how many people are living their lives. As slaves, forced to do hard labor, forced to do things they don't want to do. A slave to the system, to what people call the matrix. This is how you escape the suffering of this world. This is how you find everything you could ever desire. But who will hear these words?